Good morning, student. How is everyone doing? Okay.
Good.
All right. I'm assuming everybody can hear me. If you cannot, please send me a chat message indicating so. All right. All right. Today we're gonna continue with chapter 3. Anyone have any question before we start? Okay. Everybody's okay. If you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and let me turn the projector on in here. I'm gonna start the visualizer so you can see the projector. Okay, we were working on this form last on Monday, right? So we're creating a room change charge calculator for a hotel, and basically we want to display the system date and time every time we start the form, and we already did that. We created what we call a form load procedure that automatically display the system date and time using the now function, which is provided by Visual Basic. And we haven't done this part, so we're in the process of doing this thing. So let's go ahead and continue with that. So I'm gonna go ahead and open that in Visual Studio. This is another application we're gonna do, but let me go ahead and open the other project for now. Okay. Okay. Right, so we started with this application, and basically we created the initial form. And the important thing is for these two labels, these were named LBL today's date, and this one LBL today's time. And we wanted them the minute you, and we put in a dummy date value in here, April 27. Today is April 29, of course, and just any time in here. But when you run it, it's gonna pick up the system date from the using the now function. And the way this was programmed is by using a form load event handler in the code section. So basically, the form load procedure, this will execute every time the form starts. All right, and the way we programmed it is we programmed it to display the system, the current date and time. Now, to do that, you use a now function. The now function return the date and time, the current date and time, the system date and time. And to display just the date, use the toString method, and from it, you specify that you display the date with a capital D. This will display the date in the long format date, including the day of the week and the months and the day. So it will say something like Wednesday, April 29, 2020. If you want, you can do lowercase d, and if you do lowercase d, it will display the date in short format. So it'll say only 4/29/20. So it's up to you how you want to display it. You want to display it in long format. Similarly, you can display the time using the same function, now.toString. And if you want to display the long time, that include the hours, minute, second, and fraction of a second, you can use capital T. If you do it just hour and minute, you can use small t, and this will display the short time format. For both cases, you want to display the long date and time format. And the way we do that is by programming the form one load event. Now, the way you can get this event handler from the form, you can do that by clicking an empty area on the form. When you double click an empty area on the form, is gonna bring up the form one load event handler, and then you can program it. So we already did that, and if you run it, basically it should display the system date and time. Okay, so it does take time, a little time at the beginning to compile. So, but it's gonna do that in a little bit. All right. Anyway, anyone have any question of what we're doing so far? Right. All right. So this is, we are in run mode, and here it is. It did run, and it display today's date, which is Wednesday, April 29, and the time is 11:16 right now. So it's working okay, right? So, but I do the rest of it. Okay. So the rest of it is we're gonna follow this design template that we have in here. This is what we're gonna be doing. All right. So we're creating this thing, right? So we're gonna do this thing. So notice in here, you may notice that they are related item and they are in small boxes. These we call them group boxes, and we're gonna start using. So we're gonna add in here 3 group boxes: one for room information, one for additional charges, another one for total charges. And each group box is gonna have its own controls, right? So let's go ahead and do that. And we're gonna have 3 buttons. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to close this one on the bottom so we can see more. And I'm going to add the group box. So in the toolbox, you would see an item called group box. I'm going to double click it. It's going to add it to the form. And I want to put it in here. And this is the first one. We're going to title it room information. All right. So, and we're going to add in here 2 labels and 2 text box in that box. So we select the group box first, and then we double click on the label 1. It's going to add it inside of it, and another time it's going to add 2 labels in here. All right. We can change the name, the text of each label by going to the text property. The first one should say nights, and the second one should say nightly charge. Right, so we have that, and let me resize this group box a little bit. And we need to add maybe two text boxes. So on the control window, we can double click on text box twice. 1, 2. We're going to add them to the. It's going to add them to the group box because it's selected. Okay, I'm trying to align them vertically. Here it is. Right, so we have that. We need to add another group box. So I can go to group box. Double click on that. Let's add a third one since we are there. So we can have also bottom group box in here. Right, this second group box we're gonna name additional charges. And we're gonna add to it 3 label and 3 text boxes. Right, so let's select it. If you don't select it, very important, if you select the form and you add a label, it's going to be added to the form. So let me demonstrate that. If I double click on label, and it can happen, you may not select this one, the group box, you may select the form. And if it happens, if you double click that, it's going to add it to the form, not to the group box. If this happens, you just simply drag it inside of the group box. You can always do that. Right, but always you select the group box so the controls will be added to the group box. So I want to add 2 more labels, 1, 2. And these are going to be named. Okay, sometimes it may think that you double click a label and when it happens, it tries to program the label, and that's not what we're going to do. If it does happen and create you an event handler like label 7 click, which we don't want, simply select that procedure from sub to end sub and then delete that. So this is, because this sometimes may happen. All right, let's go ahead and go back to the design view. Right, so I'm gonna go ahead and select label 7 and drag it down. Here it is. All right, let's go ahead and change the names on these labels. So this one, first one is gonna be room service. And next one is gonna be telephone. And the third one is gonna be miscellaneous. All right, so we're gonna have that. We can align them later on. All right, I'm gonna resize this one. I'm gonna add 3 text boxes. So these first 2 group boxes are for input. I'm gonna add 3 text boxes. So here it is, 1, 2, 3. So we have that. They're not equally spaced. One way you can have them equally spaced is by dragging a box that touches the labels. This will select them and then go to the format menu. From there, select vertical spacing and then make it equal. And this will equally space them. And then we can just maybe have the text boxes aligned with these labels. Notice there is a lavender color line that will show up when you drag these text boxes, so it will align them with the label. All right, here it is. So these are I think look okay. So we have these, and we're gonna have the third group box. We need to enlarge it a little bit, and this is gonna be for the total. So when I change the text property to say total charges, and we're gonna add to that. We're gonna add, actually, there are gonna be 10 labels in here, but 5 of them are gonna look like text boxes. So let's go ahead and do the 5 labels first. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Right. So first, I'm gonna position them without caring about how their spacing is good between them, and then I want to draw a box that touches all 5 of them, and then go to the format menu, and then select vertical spacing, make equal. So they will be equally spaced. All right, so we have that. And then we can select each label and change the text value for it. So this one, the first one is gonna be room charges. And this is gonna be the additional charges. And this will be the subtotal, which is the sum of the 2. And this is gonna be the tax. And now the last one is the total charges. So this last group box is about for the output. So it's about all the output, and we need to add the labels to display the output. But we want the label to look like text boxes. So I'm just gonna pick one of them in here, the room charge. Copy that with Control-C, and then Control-V to paste it. So it's gonna create a copy of it, and then I wanna change its property. To set anytime you want a label to look like a text box, is you need to change its auto size property to false and set true. Okay, so this way you can size it, and you need to change its border style to maybe fix 3D. Right. So now you can adjust the size. Once you have what you want, you can go to the text property and delete the text. And maybe you want to do the text align to middle center. So we have that. I don't know if we're going to change the background color. If you want, you can do the back color option, and you can change that. So if you want, you can change the background color. And then once you have what you want, all right, you can copy it. You can select it and do Control-C on it, then copy it. We need 4 more times. So Control-V 4 times. All right, so here it is. We have 4 copy of it, and then we can position them. You might use the guideline to align it. Does it give you blue guideline to align it vertically and lavender lines to align it horizontally. Right, so we have them, so they look good. So that's what we have in here, and then we need to add the buttons. We need 3 of them. Okay, so here it is, 1, 2, 3, and this is gonna go below the 3rd group box. Right, once we place them, I can draw a box that touches all the buttons, and I can resize them together. Right, so we have that. And maybe while they're selected, I can go to the Format menu and select horizontal spacing and say make equal, so they can be equally spaced. All right, so they are now. All right. Okay, I think this is good. And now maybe we can select these items and move them a little bit to the left. And this one is a little bit also to the left. And then we can resize the window or the form. Let me go ahead and change the labels on the buttons. So the first one is going to be calculate charges. Second one is clear, I think. And the third one, exit. All right. We want to also use hotkeys. So we want the calculate, if you use Alt-C to execute the calculate button. To do that, you put N% in front of the letter C. Okay. If you do N% in front of the letter C, it's going to make the C the hotkey. So you can do Alt-C to execute this button. And this one, we're going to make the R the hotkey. So we can put in here before the letter R N%. And it's going to make Alt-R the hotkey to execute this button. And this one, we're going to make the X the hotkey. So before the letter X, I want to put N%. So we define these 3 hotkeys in here. Also, I want to define for the form what is the enter key and what is the cancel key, what the accept key and what's the cancel key. The accept key is when you press the enter key, which button you want to execute. Usually, the calculate button would be the accept key that you want to execute when you press enter. So we're going to define the accept key as a calculate button, and the escape key, which is we want to cancel, is the exit button. So to do that, you select the form, and you would go to the accept button, and you select from the accept button. You select basically, I need to name them. Let's name them before we do that. So when I click on this one, select name. This one will be BTN calculate, a good name. Right, naming convention for buttons BTN. This one is BTN clear. And this one BTN exit. All right, So now that we named them, I can select the form again, and I can define the accept and cancel key. So the accept button, I want to define it to be the BTN calculate. So when you press enter, it's going to execute the calculate button. And I want to define the cancel button as a exit button, BTN exit. So this is the convention usually. The cancel is the exit, and the accept is the calculate. So that's so we have that. Let's name the other things. These are text boxes. The input are shown in white boxes. These are the input text boxes, and the output are these labels that have the orange background color, right? So let's go ahead and do the input first. These are text boxes. Prefix convention is TXT. A good name is the name of the labels you see. So this would be TXT night. This would be TXT nightly charge, TXT room service, TXT telephone, TXT miscellaneous. Very simple. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to change the name property for all of these text boxes. TXT nights. Okay. Sometimes it's just take, all right. This happened again. Sometimes it thinks I'm double clicking the text box, so it create an event handler for changing the value in the text box. Is not what we want. So if this happened, if it created an event handler for something you don't want, like the text change event handling on the text box, simply select that and delete it, subroutine, and delete that. Right, so go back to the form design. Right, so, okay. All right, so I'm gonna select this other text box for nightly charge. This is gonna be, I'm gonna name this one TXT nightly charge. This one TXT room service. This one TXT telephone. This one TXT miscellaneous. And these are labels, these are outputs. So we have 5 output. So we can name them in LBL. We start the prefix LBL. LBL room charges. Again, we can use LBL and then whatever label you see on it. LBL room charges, LBL additional charges, LBL subtotal, LBL tax, LBL total charges. So this one LBL room charges. Remember, you as the programmer are responsible for naming your controls or variables. You choose any names you like, but you want to use meaningful name. A meaningful name will be used a prefix for the control type, LBL in this case, and maybe the label that you see next to it, LBL room charges. This would be a good name. All right, this is another one. This one, LBL additional charges. Notice that for readability, the prefix you use all lowercase letter. So LBL is all lowercase letter, and every letter in following word, like the A for additional, will be capitalized, and the C for charges will be capitalized. So this will make it easy to read and understand what the labels stand for. Right. So we have that, and let's do this other one, LBL subtotal. And this one, LBL tax. This one, LBL total charges. All right, and this is will take care of naming all the controls that we need. So we named all the input, which are the text boxes. We named all of these input, and we named all the output, right? So, and the buttons. So that's what you need to name, right? Now we're ready to program the code, all right? So to program it again, we said that there are 4 steps you would follow. The first step is you declare the variables, right? The second step, you do get the input. Third step, you do the calculation or processing. And the last step is you display the output, all right? So these are the steps we're gonna follow. In this case, we need to declare one variable for each input and one variable for each output. And in this case, we have 5 inputs. These are the text boxes, right? And we have 5 output, right? These are the labels. So we need a total of 10 variables, 5 for the input, 5 for the output. The other thing you can look in here, if you look at the type of variables, you can see that all the variables are money, right? Nightly charge, room service, telephone service, miscellaneous, all of these are money. All the charges for the output, room charges, additional charges, subtotal tax, and total charge, they are all money. Okay, so all of these are money except the number of nights, right? The number of nights is a whole number, it's an integer. So the only integer we're gonna need in this case is for the number of nights. Everything else is gonna be double because they are money, right? They have a fraction, so you can have like maybe $10.50. So you need a floating point number. You need double. Everything gonna be double except nights is gonna be integer because you cannot say half a night. You have to stay a full night, right? So it'll be an integer. So let's go ahead and do the coding. One other thing you would see that there are taxes in here. The taxes require a tax rate, right? Tax rate usually are constant. It's a constant, so it's a fixed number, fixed percentage. It doesn't change. So anything that is constant, that's not changing, you declare it as a constant at the beginning of the program, more like a global value, global constant. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's assume the tax rate is 8%. I don't know what the tax rate is, but let's say that it's 8%. So I'm gonna go ahead and double click on the calculate button to go to the code window. Right, this is gonna open up the code window and is gonna create an event handler for the BTN calculate thing. Before I start declaring the local variables, I have to declare the constant. The convention is this: constant you always declare as global. We're gonna talk about that in the presentation later on, but global variable you declare directly after the public class heading. So after you say public class form 1, this is where you declare in here global constants. Your global constants. As the rule, constant always declare them global, and variable you declare them local. All right. You declare constant by using, instead of them, using the keyword CONST. That's how you declare constant. CONST indicating constant. So instead of them, use CONST. And then you use the name of the constant. So the tax rate is a floating point number, so it's going to be double. So we're going to use the prefix DBL to indicate it's going to be double. And the convention in naming constant is to use all uppercase letter. So I'm going to use in here tax, all uppercase letter, underscore rate, all uppercase letter, right? And in this case, because I'm using all uppercase, I have to separate the word with underscore, right? As double. But constant must have a value. So you cannot just declare them, you have to assign them value. You have to say equal, and you can give them a value. All right, 8% is 0.08, right? Remember, you have to divide by 100 to get the percentage. So 8% is 8 divided by 100, or 0.08. So this is tax rate. You declare it as constant. The difference between constant and a global variable or constant than local, this constant is going to be visible throughout your program. It's going to be visible not just to the class, but also it's going to be visible to all the procedure. So it's going to be visible in the calculate procedure, it's going to be visible in the form load procedure, it's going to be visible everywhere. All right, so that's the idea about this thing. So let's go back to the calculate procedure. Okay, so calculate, this is where we do most of the work. So the first step, I'm going to put the steps in here. Step 0, always you declare your variable. right? And you declare variables using the dem statement. The syntax is use dem, variable name. Okay, you don't have to use all capital dem, variable name as variable data type. Right. So you declare what the name of the variable and variable type. Okay. By the way, anything you see in green, which you start with an apostrophe, is comments, meaning it's documentation. Right. And for all assignment you're gonna do from chapter 3 and on, you have to put a documentation section at the beginning, apostrophe, and in this documentation you may put some asterisks in here to do separation. You need to put your name. You need to put the purpose of the program, what the program is for. You need to put what is the input, what is the needed input. You need to put what's the processing. And you need to put what's the required output.
So teacher, I just have one question. Do we need to do this for all the programs which you write?
Oh, all the program, yes, you have to put, yeah, for chapter 3 and on. You have to specify what's the processing. For example, in here, purpose is to calculate room charges and taxes and total. Taxes, and total charges. Right. Input, you can say in here, night stayed, nightly charge, room charge, room service, telephone, phone. You may want to say charges. Okay. Room service charges, maybe you want to add that in here. I'm trying to abbreviate in here. Telephone charges and miscellaneous charges. Right. These are the 5 things textbooks we use for input, right? So you list them what they are. Processing is multiply nights by nightly charge to get the room charges. Okay, and then you can go to the next line. You don't have to put them all in one line, right? Add the room service, telephone, and miscellaneous charges to get the additional charges. Right, and you can keep on going. All right, so you can do that. The other one is maybe you can say add the room charges to the additional charges to get the subtotal. And maybe you can say multiply the subtotal by the tax rate to get the taxes. And then you can say in here, add the subtotal, the tax, to the subtotal to get the total charges. And then for the output, you can say display. Display the room charges, additional charges, subtotal, tax, and total charges. Something like that, right? So you have to put some documentation at the beginning of every program that explain what you need to do. You don't have to do kind of composition, English composition. Just tell me what is the input, what is the output, what's the processing, and what's the purpose of the program. Just briefly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
all right. And then you put your name in here. All right. So very important. I need to know that you wrote the program. I need to know who's writing the program. So
and do we need to write the class name too, like computer science one?
No. This is not. Just only as long as you write your name. Make sure the name is important. I need to know that you wrote the program. Write your name and the other information. Okay.
So teacher, I just have one more question, but like it's out the contest. In next semester, I wanted to take like computer science 139, the C++. So I thought like in this
I think it's better to contact me during my office hour. We can discuss that in better in more detail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So everybody should see me during my office hour. I have a link there, and will be good time to discuss this matter. All right. Because these are important questions, but yeah, it's probably better to discuss them during my office hour. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the declaring the variables. So we're doing the calculate procedure. So we're gonna declare our variables. All right. For each input and for each output, you need to declare a variable. We have 5 inputs. These are the text boxes. 5 inputs and 5 outputs. So we need 10 variables. All of them are gonna be double except the night is an integer. Everything else is gonna be double. All right. Okay. Because money is double, right? It's a floating point number. So we declare them here. Then, good name to use. Always the prefix is int for integer, right? DBL for double. So in here, use the same name as the control. So in the form design, we call it txt night. In the variable, we called int night. Use the same name, but change the prefix to int and use IntelliSense. As soon as you see the thing you want, press on tab to get it. And this one is going to be integer. And then we need the other one, them. Okay, now all the other are going to be DBL because they're going to be double. The money is a floating point number, so it include fraction. DBL nightly charge. As double. Always use the IntelliSense. It saves you typing and also prevent typing error. So use that. Notice the wavy green line. Don't have to worry about it. What it say, if you move the cursor over it, it say that you haven't used a variable yet. Okay, of course we haven't used it because we're writing the program. We haven't finished writing the program. So as we finish writing the program, it's gonna be removed. So don't worry about it for now. The wavy red line and wavy green line are to worry about. This indicates syntax error. So if you say wavy red line or wavy blue line, you need to correct them because it means you did something wrong. All right, let's go ahead and continue with that. Them DBL room service as double. Them DBL telephone as double. Them DBL miscellaneous as double. Okay, I made space in here. Okay, then we can have in here room charges. And we're going to have additional charges. And we're going to have subtotal. And then we're going to have the tax. And we're going to have the total charges. Right, so this is basically where you can one variable for each input, one variable for each output. So we have 5 input, 5 output. We need total 10. And if you count them, there are 10 variables in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have that. All right. So this is what you do first. You declare your variable. Step 0. All right. Everybody should always follow this methodology, and you'll be okay. Second thing you need to do. All right. We talked about exception handling on Monday. We said that you need to account for invalid entry. Like, for example, you have this form where it asks you to enter the number of nights and the nightly charge. And everything will work okay if you enter numbers. But what if you enter some invalid character for the number of nights or nightly charge? What if you entered ABC instead of maybe 2 nights? Of course, you're going to have error because you're not going to be able to do calculations with ABC. They are not numbers. They have to be numbers. One way you can catch these input errors is by using exception handling. You do that by remembering 3-letter word, try. You need to remember this word, try. Directly after you do step 0, you do try, press enter. And this will give you the catch block for you. It gives you 2 blocks, a try block and a catch block. You put step 1, 2, and 3 in the try block. Always you want to do it correctly. If you do anything other than that, you're going to get it incorrectly. This is you get the input. Right? Step 2 is where you do the processing or calculation. And step 3 is where you display the output. Always do these 3 steps inside the try block. Don't do them any other way. Otherwise, you're gonna get a problem. All right. Don't put the step 1 in the try block, and some of you may do step 1 in try block, and they may take step 2 and 3 and put it after and try. It's not gonna work. Everything has to be in the try block. Step 1, 2, and 3 must be in the try block. And the catch block, always you're gonna do this one. You're gonna say message box. Dot show. And you're going to say an error message. Numbers only. Okay, that means enter numbers only. All right. That's what happened. What happened is this. It's gonna try to get your input and do calculation with it. If it fails, if the input is invalid, if you entered ABC instead of a number, it's not gonna be able to do the input. It's gonna throw it to the catch block. The catch block is gonna say numbers only, and the program will terminate. That's why you don't wanna put anything after and try, because if you put anything after and try and you failed and your input is gonna still gonna execute them after and try, and you don't want that. That's why step 1 and 2 and 3 must be in the try block. Nothing after and try. So after you add and try should be and sub. Nothing after that. Always remember that. Nothing after and try. So that's what we're going to do. Now, the input, we talked about it on Monday, but let me go ahead and review the syntax. Input, remember, when you enter data, input, you're getting that through text boxes, right? Getting that through text boxes through this one. But what you enter in a text box are text, like the name imply. We're entering text, not numbers. So even if you enter a value, let me go ahead and switch to the projector. Even if you enter a value like in a text box, let's say you enter in here 2 nights, right? Even you enter a number and you said the nightly charge is maybe $80 a night. Even you're entering number, what actually is happening, you're entering text. So the 2 is actually the string 2, right? And the 80 is actually, let's say $80.50 is actually the string 80.5. This is, you cannot do calculation with that. You have to convert it to a number. To convert it, we talk about conversion function. We thought that there are a CINT function that will take an argument, maybe a string, and will give you as output the number 2, not the string 2. Similarly, we talk about another conversion function, CDBL, that take as an argument maybe 80.5, and we'll convert it to the number 80.5, right? So this one is different than this one. This is text, or another term is a string. So string is the same as text. And this one is a number. So different, right? Taking 2 times 80.5 makes sense. It's perfectly valid, right? This is give you 161, right? Taking the string 2, multiplying it by the string 80.5 doesn't make sense. It's like taking a table and multiply it by a chair. This is descriptive item. It describes something. Describe a table or chair. This is describe 2. It's not a number 2. It's text. So you cannot do calculation with text. You have to use conversion. You have to convert it to a number so you can work with it. All right. So this is the thing about input. Now, very important. Visual Basic is based on the basic language. All right. So the history of Visual Basic is based on the basic language, which was more like for amateur programmer, right? And because it was designed, Basic was designed for amateur programming, it wasn't designed seriously, and it had many flaws in it. And one of the biggest flaws in the basic language was it allowed you to take something that doesn't make sense, like this thing, and it allow you to work with that. So to the basic language, it allow you to do that, right? And this is basically frustrated the computer science community, saying it's not a serious programming language, because this is what we call, it's not strongly typed language. So it is definitely not strongly typed. Strongly typed language like C++ and Pascal and the other languages, you cannot mix apple and oranges. You have to multiply, everything must be with the same type. These has to be number and this number. You cannot have characters and then get a number as a result, right? Now, because Visual Basic is based on basic, right? it's based on the basic language, it still allow you to do these bad things, right? It still allow you to do these things. But in order to get acceptance into the computer science community, they introduce a option that you can turn on. They call it option strict. And they tell you that if you want, you can turn option strict on at the beginning of the program by saying option strict on. And if you do that, then it will not allow you to do this anymore. All right. Now, when I grade your assignment, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say that very importantly. I want to make sure that you follow this thing. When I grade your assignment, right, the first thing I'm going to do, and I recommend that you do it because you don't want to be surprised when you get your grade. The first thing I want to do is this. I want to go to the top of your program. I want to add in here option strict on, right? By default, Visual Basic is not a strongly typed language. So by default, this is off, right? So it will allow you to multiply string together to get numbers. It's not going to give you anything wrong. But the thing I'm going to turn it on to fix that. And then if you don't do that, you're going to get lots of error that you didn't see before. First of all, let's keep it off, and then I'll turn it on later on. I'm going to keep it off for now. I'll turn it on just to illustrate what you're going to have in here. All right. So I'm going to see the syntax in here. The proper syntax is to use, as I indicated in here, you have to convert. You have to convert integer to. You have to convert text to an integer using CINT, and you have to convert double to double using CDBL. So we have to use that. So this is the syntax. So you take in here int integer variable is going to equal. You can use the CINT function to convert to an integer. Whatever you enter in the text box, txt control dot text, convert to an integer. And if you have double, you're going to use, you're going to assign it to DBL variable, and you can use the CDBL function. Txt control dot text. Right. So this is what I should do. All right. All right. I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do it the wrong way. All right. I want to say, since Visual Basic, I'm going to say, okay, Visual Basic is easy going. So I'm going to take advantage of that. All right. So I'm going to say in here, int nights. And I'm not going to use the convert function. I'm not going to say CINT. Instead, I'm going to just say in here txt nights dot text. Notice Visual Basic doesn't complain, right? It doesn't tell me everything's fine and great, nothing wrong. Okay, and you may just keep on going and say here DBL nightly charge, and you can say equal txt nightly charge dot text. Again, Visual Basic is not complaining, right? It's allow you basically to mix apple and orange. What's happening is allow you to assign a string to a numeric variable, which should not, right? The reason is because by default option strict is off. It's not on. So it's not checking for strongly typed syntax. So it's allowing you to do that, right? And let's say you did the whole thing and you saw everything run and work and beautiful, and you submitted your work like that, right? Guess what I'm going to do when I first get this thing? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn option strict on. I'm going to turn it on. And guess what's going to happen when you turn it on? These are errors now. And when I get a program that have syntax error, automatically I remove 50% of the problem, automatically. So no matter if everything's fine, if you give me program that have errors with these red lines, all right, I'm gonna deduct 50% of the grade. So automatically you're gonna lose half the problem, right? So that's tell you in here, always do it correctly. Use conversion function, CINT, convert that to an integer, and then assign it to an integer variable. This one's use CDBL, convert it to a double, and assign it this thing, all right? And then it's fine now, there's no errors, all right? So the first thing, the first rule, the first thing you wanna do, put option strict on at the beginning, right? Because you don't wanna get a situation where you submit your work and I deduct 50% of your grade because you were doing something that is not strongly typed. So always turn it on at the beginning to make sure you don't have any syntax error with when you're doing strongly typed programming, which is the only way you can do serious programming. Let's go ahead and continue with the other ones. All of them are now double, so we're going to use CDBL for them. We have in here DBL, room charges, not room charges, room service, sorry, equals CDBL DXT room service. That notice IntelliSense how beautiful it is. You just you see it, you press tab, and you get it. It's not only saving you time typing, but it preventing typing error. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you saying you saw that this one is actually or you transpose these two, and it happened. Now you have it. You have a syntax error, right? So use IntelliSense. Alexa get triggered on here. All right. Okay. So we have TXT service. Always use IntelliSense. I don't have this error. DBL, and then we have telephone services. Telephone charges. CDBL. TXT telephone. Dot text. All right, so DBL miscellaneous equals CDBL TXT miscellaneous dot text. All right, and this is your input. We have 5 input, 5 text boxes, 5 input statement. Here they are. For each text box, you need 1 statement. That's it. 5 statement. That's all what you need. Each text box is going to give you 1 statement. We have 5 of them. You need 5 statements. Simple as that. So input is very straightforward. Notice what happened on the variable. The wavy green line has disappeared from the first 5 variables because I have used them in the input section, right? This other one going to be disappear as soon as we finish processing. Do the calculation. We're going to get that. Let's do the processing. Processing, the syntax is very straightforward. Is at least till we get to chapter 4, it's going to become more complex. Syntax is going to basically be variable equal expression. All right. Always the variable is on the left-hand side of the assignment statement. Left-hand side, not the right-hand side. You cannot say expression equal variable. It has to be variable equal expression. All right, so let's go ahead and compute that. The first thing we're going to compute is we're going to compute basically what's the output section. That's what we're computing. We're going to compute the room charges. We're going to use additional charges, subtotal tax, total charges. That's what we're going to do. So we need 5 statements in here to compute these 5 items. Room charges simply is the nights times the nightly charge. Very straightforward, right? So if you stay 2 nights at $50 a night, you pay $150. Now, okay, I hear I did heard some kind of beep. Anybody have a question or something like that? Let me see. Okay, anyway, so additional charges is the sum of the additional charges. Room service plus telephone plus miscellaneous is going to give you additional charges. Subtotal is the sum of the room charges and additional charges. The tax is the subtotal times the tax rate, which is 8%. And the total charges is a subtotal plus the tax. So straightforward, all right? Always you need to know how to do things on paper before you write the program. So understand the problem before writing the program, because if you cannot solve it on paper, you're not going to be able to write a program to solve it. So always make sure you understand it. If you don't understand it, if you don't know how to compute room charges or additional charges subtotal, ask question. How do I compute it? I'll explain it to you, and then you can write your program. But if you don't know how to do it on paper, you're not going to be able to write a program to do it. Let's go back to the program. So we're going to compute in here DBL. Okay, and we're going to compute room charges. This is going to equal to the the number of nights times the nightly charge. Right, so and we're going to compute the additional charges. This is going to equal to the room service or room service plus telephone plus miscellaneous. And then we compute the subtotal. This is going to equal to the room charges plus the additional charges. The tax is going to equal the subtotal times the tax rate, all right? So tax rate is 8%, but you don't want to put 0.08, right? The reason you don't want to do that is it may work for now, right? But if in the future, if the tax rate changed to 9%, you have to look for it and then change it to 9%, right? So instead, you want to declare this one as a constant at the beginning, like we did in here, DBL tax rate, and use that constant. So this way, if it changes, you change it at the top. So let's go ahead and change this one, put DBL tax rate in here, the constant name, DBL tax rate. Again, the convention you use for constant, use all uppercase letter to distinguish it from variable, to indicate that this is a constant. Right, so we have that, and then after that we have the DBL total charges. And this is going to equal to the subtotal plus the tax. And this will give you the calculation. 5 output, you do 5 calculation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 calculation. Notice all your variables now don't have a wavy green line because they are defined. You assign each one of them a value. Each one of them have a value. So you're fine. All right. Now the last thing is we're going to do the output. All right. The output is the syntax again. Output is the opposite of input. Okay, the syntax is typed incorrect. It's the opposite for the input. The input you set variable equal control. For the output you say control, which is a label. LBL control.text is going to equal to the variable, which is numeric variable, dot toString. Right, so you can do that. This is one format, and there's many other formats. I want to list a few of them. but there is a table on the chapter 3 that you can refer to. Another format for it. You can use toString without any format specifier. It will not format the output. If you want to format it as currency, you can use C to format it as currency. If you want to format it as a number without dollar sign, comma separator with no dollar sign, you can format with the N format specifier. If you're going to format it as a percentage, you can format it with a P format specifier. If you want to format it as a fixed number with no decimal point, then you can use maybe F for fix. We're not going to put comma separator for that. You can format it also. There's other thing you can do. You can format if you have maybe, you may have a date variable. You may have a date variable, and then you can format it to display the full date, the long date format, and you can do maybe the time. And you can do other. You can do small t and capital T. They are different, right? They're missing that they may be the same, but they are not the same. If you use in here small d, it's a short date format, and small t is a short time format. And there's other formats that you can check it on in chapter 3. Right, so there's a reference for that. So in this case, we're talking about money. All the output is money. So if you look at this one, all of these are charges, are money. So we're going to display all of them using the currency format, using this format, right? So all of them are going to be toString with a C format specified. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have 5 output. We need 5 statement LBL. The first thing is room charges dot text equal. The corresponding one will be DBL room charges. Okay. Dot text dot toString, and we're going to format it as currency. Now you can specify if you want number of digit after a decimal point. The default is 2. So if you want 2, you can just leave it out, right? If you don't want any digit, you can put 0. If you don't want decimal places, you can just do that. Let's see with default, which is going to give you 2 digit. We're going to do the other one is LBL additional charges dot text equal DBL additional charges dot toString. See LBL subtotal dot text equal DBL subtotal dot toString formatted as currency. LBL tax dot tax equal DBL tax dot toString also currency. And the final one is LBL total charges dot text. It's DBL total charges dot toString. Right, so again, you have 5 outputs. You need 5 statements in the output section. And this should display all of them with $sign and comma separator by using the currency format specifier for all of them. And this is it. So the nice thing about this one is by putting step 1, 2, and 3 in the try block, if you have any errors in the input, exceptions that we call them, they're gonna throw it to the catch block, and the catch block will display an error message, enter numbers only. So which is great, right? Let's go ahead and see how this is work. I'm gonna go ahead and run it. And whenever you write programs, it's a good idea to use simple numbers that you can remember, so you can do calculate by head to see if the result is correct. So choose something simple, 2 nights, right, at $50 a night. So you can compute that in your head to be $100, right? So this is $100. So room service, let's go ahead and put in here $10. Telephone is maybe $10. And miscellaneous $10. Just make it simple. All right. So this is $30, $130 subtotal, right? Okay. Let's calculate. So this is $100 room charges. 2 times 50 is $100. Additional charges 30. 10 plus 10 plus 10 is 30. $130. Take 8% of 130. It's about 1040. It's about correct, right? Total, you add the subtotal to the tax, is 140 and 40 cents. So it's computing correctly. So always verify that the number are correct. Don't just assume they're going to be correct. Make sure that they are reasonable. All right, so we have that. Now the other thing we need to program the clear button, right? So let's go ahead and program the clear button. I can do it from this pull down list btn clear and the click event. All right, so in this case, clearing the thing is very simple. You need to clear the text boxes and clear the labels. And maybe you want to update the date and time. Maybe we want to do that. So let's go ahead and do that. Clearing the boxes is very straightforward. It's a text boxes. You say txt each one, txt nights dot clear. You can use the clear method. Txt nightly charge dot clear. Txt room charges, room service dot clear. Txt telephone dot clear, and txt miscellaneous dot clear. So a clear method will clear them. So it's very straightforward for the text boxes. Labels, you cannot use a clear method. You don't have a clear method for label. For labels, you have to use LBL, basically room charges dot text, and you need to assign it either you need to say string dot empty. Either do that means assign it an empty string, or simply just use 2 double quotes. Double quote, this would be an empty string. So we have to say LBL additional charges dot text equal to an empty string, LBL subtotal dot text equal to an empty string, LBL tax dot text equal to an empty string, and LBL total charges dot text equal to an empty string. All right, so we can do that. So so you can do this one, yeah. So you cannot do clear method with labels. You can, if you want to use that text with the text boxes, you can say txt nice that text equal an empty string also. But for the clear is easier for you to use. Now we need to update the date and time. We can just copy that from the load event handler. So we can just copy these 2 statements from here to update the system date and time, whatever it display there. And it's going to update the value of the date. Most probably the date is not going to change unless if you're working close to midnight, then it may change. But the time is always going to change. All right, so this is probably is good to do that. So this will be clear, and everybody know how to program the exit button, which is me.close. Always exit button me.close. So this should take care of it. But the only problem with this thing, if I run it right now, and I haven't checked typing error, Let's say I enter in here an invalid value in here. I entered ABC, some invalid values. Calculate charges. It's going to tell me numbers only, right? It doesn't tell me where the error is. It doesn't tell me that I entered the correct number of nights. It just tells me numbers only, right? So I have to figure out where it is. I have to go and change that. Then, and then in here, if I enter invalid value, it's going to tell me again numbers only. It doesn't tell me that it is a nightly charge. I'd like to see something tell me you enter valid value for nightly charge. And then when I say, okay, I want to go there, highlight that, and then allow me to correct it. So is there a way to do that? And the answer, yes, you can do that, but it's going to create a more complex program. Let's see if the clear method works. Let's go ahead and put in here just any numbers. All right, let's see if the clear works. Right now the time is 12:30 and 46. If I click on clear, it should update the time. We're near the end of the lecture, I guess, so we have only a few minutes left. The exit does work. Let me go ahead and save that. And I want to make a copy of this thing. So I want to close this thing. And I want to open an existing one. I want to make a copy of it. Let's close. Let me close this thing for now. And I want to make a copy of so this one is a room charge calculator. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to call it room charge calculator 2. So I want to do another version of it. And the idea is going to open it probably with Visual 2017. I guess it's okay. Okay, I'm going to explain another approach of doing things. It's going to make the program a little bit more complex, but it's going to give you better interaction with the user. Let's look at this one. And this one I have to continue on Monday. But instead of using one try-catch block, you would use multiple try-catch block. The idea is for each text box, you will use try-catch block. So you have 5 text boxes in here. You need to use 5 nested try-catch block. They have to be nested. So you put, and I want to just outline the approach. Instead of using only one try-catch block, you would put one try-catch block. This is for the TXT nights. One for each control, and you put another one try, but it has to be inside of the first one. And you do that for TXT nightly charge. And then you put another try. And this is going to be for TXT room service. And you put another try. And this is going to be for TXT telephone. And you put another one for the last one, which is miscellaneous. TXT miscellaneous. So for each text box, you put that. And the steps, step 1, step 2, And step 3, you put them in the innermost try block. You put them in the innermost one, okay? And in here, you display error message for the TXT miscellaneous. This one would be for message for telephone. This one would be for nightly room service. This one be for nightly charge. This one be for whatever. So we'll do that. So basically, let me go ahead and copy this thing. So in here, the step 2 and 3, you're gonna copy them from here to the innermost. You're gonna copy them to the innermost try catch block. So you're gonna copy them here. You still have to do one input statement in here. The last one, you have to get it in. You have to put in here. So you put that. You still have to put, each one should have only one input statement. So in here, you're gonna take the first input statement for the nights, put it in the first try block. And for the second try block, you're gonna get the second input statement. And for the third one, you're gonna get the third input statement. And you're gonna have for the telephone, the last one, you put it in here. Okay, and then in the, I'm sorry, I'm keeping you late. Then you go in the reverse order. So the outermost catch block is for the first text box, which is, we're gonna put a message box that show, and we're gonna display specific error message for the night chart. So we're gonna say in here, enter numbers for nights, numbers only for nights. Okay, maybe not the best way to describe it. And then we're gonna do after that, we're gonna set the focus to the nights field, the actually night focus. That means I wanna move the cursor to that field. And then I wanna select all the text in TXT night. TXT night that select all. Right? And I can do similar thing for the other ones. So I can copy this thing and work inward. So I can copy this one and copy it on this catch block. This is gonna be for nightly charge. And in this case, we put the focus to nightly charge and select all the text in nightly charge, right? And I can keep on going for the other ones, but let me give you the demonstration what is the impact of that. The demonstration of that is that if you enter, and I wanna only put the first two fields. I should have deleted some other thing code that I was not using, but right. So if you enter an invalid value now for tax, we say calculate, it's going to tell you enter numbers only for night. And we say, okay, it's going to put the focus on that field, select the text so you can enter a valid night. And if I enter an invalid value for nightly charge, it's going to tell you enter number for nightly charge and say, okay, it's going to put the focus on nightly charge, allow you to enter a valid value. And now I didn't do the other three, but you can follow to the same idea. So anyway, I will finish this thing on Monday, and we'll just go over the PowerPoint presentation for chapter 3. But if you have any question, please see me during my office hour. That's what my office hour for. I'm having extra office hour on Saturday from 11 to 12. So if you need to see me on Saturday, you can check my online office hour between 11 and 12 for assistance. That's all what I have for now. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. I'm sorry for keeping you a little bit over the class meeting time. I will take a question as soon as I stop the recording.